Thank you so much, Becky, for joining me and answering some of my questions.
It's really great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So, to start off, what is melanoma?
So, melanoma is a type of skin cancer. In general, apart from some subtypes, it's generally caused by light from the sun, so UV light, basically causing changes in normal cells that exist in the skin, which you might see in moles, for instance. But then unfortunately, they develop what we call mutations, so these changes that then can make the cells grow and multiply, and also make them more likely to spread to other places. And so it is an aggressive type of skin cancer, unfortunately.
How is melanoma currently treated?
So most patients will present with what we call very early stage melanoma. So you might see something on the skin, a growth on the skin, and it's really important to do the skin checks to look for these. And so when um, when we see this, we can take it out with surgery, and sometimes we also take a lymph node out and check whether there's melanoma there too. So depending on what stage, so how spread the cancer is, we have a number of different other treatments. So if it's an early stage melanoma, patients could be offered immune therapy after surgery, or if they have what we call the BRAF mutation, so that's that change in the cancer cells, which is really specific and enables us then to target that growth of the cancer cells with what we call targeted therapy. So that can be BRAF and MEK inhibitors. So those are the two major things that we use in the kind of early stage setting. And then in later stages, we use the same, but we also sometimes add in use combinations of the immune therapy treatment.
What is the DETECTION-2 trial?
The DETECTION-2 trial is a trial looking at patients with early stage melanoma. So that hasn't spread beyond the lymph nodes, and looking to see whether we can either treat with standard treatment, so surgery plus drug treatment after surgery, or whether we can try and avoid giving the drug treatment because of the side effects and instead really intensely monitor patients with a blood test that's really, really sensitive and specific for melanoma, which we hope will then detect the cancer either present or coming back at a really early stage. And then we specifically treat only the patients that really, really need that treatment with the drugs.
What is the importance of this trial?
There are a lot of patients currently having too much treatment. So the majority of patients would actually be cured by their surgery alone. However, at the minute, we're treating everyone with the drugs and offering that treatment to everyone. What we're hoping is that in future, if the trial shows that it's similar and equivalent, that maybe patients would have the choice, and some patients might still want to have treatment straight away, but the majority of patients might actually say, well, do you know what? I'm going to have this blood test and the CT scans, etc., and be monitored really thoroughly. And if the blood test shows anything, then I'll have treatment at that stage. And so that's what we'd like to be able to achieve for patients.
What does taking part in the trial involve?
So the trial involves being randomized, so either going to group one group of patients who will have the treatment after the surgery, or another group would have the blood test monitoring. So they would have regular blood tests initially every 3 months, and then in years 4 and 5 every 6 months. And this blood test would enable us to see whether we could detect any sign of the melanoma either being present or coming back at a really early stage.
Why would a patient choose to take part in the trial over adjuvant treatment?
really, detection offers a way of more intensive monitoring for those patients that actually, when they think about having the drug-based treatment after surgery, that actually they're really concerned about the side effects and they would ideally not go for that treatment. And instead, this gives them the option to be really intensively monitored. And so I think it's a really good option, especially for those patients who want to avoid those side effects potentially.
Are there any risks involved with taking part in the trial?
There's a small risk that we potentially wouldn't detect the cancer coming back. Now, from our, we've done a lot of work trying to get this assay to be as good as it possibly can. And to try and avoid that. And we're also doing those regular tests. So even if we didn't pick it up on the first test, the hope would be that we pick it up on the next one. And so we've done all these things to try and reduce that risk, but there is a small risk that we wouldn't pick that up. If that was the case, we would pick it up on scans and they would still get treatment at that stage.
Who's eligible to take part in the trial?
So it would be patients with what we call stage 2B, 2C, or 3A melanoma. So that's a really early stage. Patients need to be able to be fit enough to have drug-based treatment. And then it's really if they have a mutation which we can use to track in the blood. So because we're trying to find like a needle in a haystack, so we need to know what we're looking for in order to find it. And so we're looking for patients with either a BRAF, an NRAS, or a TERT mutation. And we do all that screening when patients agree to consent for the study.
What would be the future plans for the research if the DETECTION-2 trial was successful?
So initially, we're doing a feasibility study. So that's really to see whether patients are happy to be randomized to either the blood test monitoring or to the adjuvant treatment. If the trial is feasible and we can get enough patients randomized within a set time, then we can go into what we call a phase 3 study, which is a much bigger study of over 800 patients. And that will properly enable us to address the question in a very rigorous way, really. Either way, we'll have a really good answer in terms of what we should do for patients and what the best thing to do is.
What are your hopes for future melanoma treatment?
My hope would be that we have really, really good treatments. But I think also what's really important is that we actually are more precise of who needs the treatment and actually find ways to identify who really needs the most aggressive treatments, who needs kind of less aggressive but still some treatment, and who actually can avoid some of the treatments. And I think if we can be better at being precise about that, we can both ensure that patients have a long-term quality of life and potentially enjoy their lives a lot better because they're not having side effects from treatments that they didn't need. But actually, we're doing the most aggressive treatments for those patients who really, really need it.
How can people find out more?
So there's lots more information either on the Southampton Clinical Trials Unit website. Also, there's information in the Melanoma Trial Finder website, as well as the CRUK trial website as well.
Thank you so much for answering my questions today. It was really interesting to find out more about the trial.
Jemima, it's been really great having a chat with you about it, and hopefully we'll really be able to figure out what's the best thing to do in the future for patients.